How do you say that? Jeg sier opp så ikke med seg kveldet.
How do I not start with so? So.
I can't demonstrate it.
Are you rolling?
Hello everyone, my name is Karin. I'm a Uri-based mountain guide and often work in Andermatt. This film is a refresher. It shouldn't replace a course or your experience. It gives you some insights, tips and tricks on how to ski tour. Preparation is key, but if we would go into detailed tour planning, it would be way too much for a short film like this. So if you're not familiar with these topics, it's always best to book a course or hire a mountain guide. When it comes to tour planning, I typically think about three main factors: the human, the terrain, and the conditions. And I check this at home, at the mountains on site, and on each and every individual slope. This is also called the 3x3 method. I check different options for skinning up, but more importantly for skiing down, and I'd recommend making a habit out of it. For inspiration and to gather information, I typically check the guidebook, I read the map, I check the SAC app, and I call a friend. And obviously, always check the latest avalanche forecast. Let's start with the basics, and by the basics I mean the avalanche kit. The avalanche kit includes the probe, the shovel and the transceiver. Always check your battery. It's very important to know how to use your own gear, so go outside and play with it. A quick tip for that: at the Gamstock mid-station there's an avalanche training center where you can practice using your transceiver. A randomizer simulates one or multiple buried persons, so you can train different search scenarios in a marked area. And now, back to packing. I like to put the probe and the shovel in the back of my backpack. And if you have a freeride backpack or an airbag, you often have a specific pocket for it. The transceiver will be worn on a specific harness around your body, below your jacket, or on a specially designed pocket in your pants. Next up are the skins and the ski crampons. The ski crampons can be very useful in windy conditions or on a spring morning when the snow is still hard. Let's talk about sun and wind protection. Sunglasses, sunscreen, maybe a sun hat, goggle, and I often pack a buff. It's light and versatile and really handy in the mountains. Obviously, when we're out there, we need to protect our head and our hands from the cold because we lose a lot of heat through them. I usually pack a pair of thinner gloves, a pack of thicker gloves, and sometimes even a shell if it's really windy. As for head protection, I usually have a beanie or a headband. Some people also like to take an extra base layer to change on top of the mountain, to get out of the sweaty one and to stay warm and dry. Sometimes unexpected problems can happen and you need to pack a first aid kit, and I would also recommend having some tools for just some basic repairs on your gear. I typically carry a couple of screws, a small tool, then I really like the ski straps. I have some tape, wire, just really essential things that you can fix your gear if it breaks. The first aid kit should not only include painkillers and bandages, I would also recommend having an emergency blanket in it. I carry also a small headlamp and a Garmin InReach in case I have no phone signal and I use satellite communication. If I go on a multi-day ski tour or in remote places, I often pack a thumb splint for broken bones and a small baby bag. Let's face it, nowadays we often use our mobile phone for navigation. Just make sure that you've downloaded your maps for offline use and that your phone is fully charged. Also remember, a phone can fail, and especially when it's cold. When that happens, it's quite nice having a paper map and a compass as a backup. Of course, we don't want to run out of energy. So don't forget to pack some snacks and a drink depending on how long your tour is. And also don't forget to eat them. So the essential for most of the ski tours are ready now. Sometimes you would move the terrain where you would need an ice axe, harness and crampons, but let's just move that aside for now. A general packing tip: keep the heavier things at the bottom and close to your back, and also have the items you use the first time in the morning on top. All packed and ready, time to get some sleep. So finally the day has arrived. I had my morning coffee, I looked out of the window and I checked the latest weather forecast, and everything looks as expected. So one thing we could talk about for ages is the helmet. I just say bring it with you whenever you can. That you not only have to listen to me, we are meeting up with Dan, and I'm already looking forward to catch up with him. Bring your boots with you, you wouldn't be the first person to forget them. Also pack your poles and skis. Well, we arrived at the start of our tour, and here we are meeting up with Dan. Maybe you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Dan. I originally come from the US, but I've been in Andermatt-Kirchenen area for about 23 years, and I work here as a mountain guide full-time.
Thank you, Dan. Now it's time to put on the skins. When you put on the skin, you want to make sure that you have a clean surface on the ski. You attach it at the front tip, make it tight, and then I flip the ski around, and now I can center it on my ski. Always have a look that you see the steel edges, and do the clipper around.
Sometimes we have the problem that you might get snow and ice on your skin, especially when it's cold and powdery and you need to do a second descent. One good trick is to stick your ski in the snow with the base away. Put the skin behind it. For a little extra stability, you can put your foot where the binding is, and then you just slide your skin back and forth across the edge. If you have old glue or ice, that really helps to clean it off, so you have a good surface to stick it back onto your ski.
The skins are on and we are ready, but we need to make a transceiver check first. And also, before we blindly go on the tour, let's think about conditions such as the weather, the snow, and also have a checkup on how the group is feeling.
Okay, so conditions look good for the tour we're planning. So before we go do the beeps check, we're gonna put the skis on and check the buckles on our boots. The first thing is to set your binding into walk mode. On these bindings, we turn the heel, push the brake down. Every binding's a bit different, but it's good if you know how yours works. Then I step into the binding, making sure that the pins line up into my boot. And on a pins type of binding, we need to pull up the front for walking, which blocks the binding so that on a hard traverse, the ski doesn't suddenly fall off. For walking, I like to buckle my boot in such a way that the second buckle is lightly on. The first buckle can be open, and then the upper buckle should be totally loose so that your foot can move in the boot. So your boot can move. The back should also be in walk mode so that the cuff can move forward and back. The main thing is just to have enough tension on the second buckle that your foot doesn't move, which would give you blisters. Everybody's foot is different, everybody's boot is different, so figure out what works for you. Not too tight, not too loose, but a little bit of support's not bad. All right, now it's time for the transceiver check. Corinne, could you take care of that?
Absolutely. So what I usually do when I have a bigger group, I wanted to go in front a bit so everyone can pass me with about 3 meters of distance. So I go in front. Okay, I'm gonna do the transceiver check. With my device, I have a group check function on it. Dan, do you wanna pass? Yep, off you go. Martin, cameraman, you wanna check? Yeah, good.
It's always a good idea to do the transceiver check as soon as possible while you still have the chance to replace batteries and before you're somewhere in the middle of the wilderness. So, Corinne, are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, dokie.
Skinning uphill is all about saving energy. And in order to save your energy, you want to glide on the surface and not lift your boots with the skis up, because if you would do that all the time, that just needs too much energy. So you want to glide on the snow like that. Another thing worth mentioning is that you want to have as much of your skin touching the snow, because this gives you the stability. A lot of skiers, when they are on a traverse, they try to edge in, but this actually doesn't help you that much. You really want to have the skin touching the snow. By the way, you might think that I'm running warm in these clothes, but I usually like to start and walk for maybe 15 minutes and then I adjust my layer. For smaller temperature adjustments, you have zippers at your pants and sometimes also at the jacket, and so use them while walking. But I think that's enough for now. Let's start walking.
One important thing to think about is how you want to make the track up. Generally, you want to try to find a way that is not too steep. You want to think about what's above you and what's below you with regards to avalanche and rockfall and risk. And on top of that, you want the track to be not too steep but not too flat. So a good rule of thumb is if you're walking with your heel riser on the first level, that's generally a good angle for your track to be. Eventually the terrain can get steeper and steeper, and eventually it might be necessary to make a kick turn.
Yeah, lots of people are afraid to make kick turns, but I think it's just a matter of practice. And I'm gonna show you how a kick turn is done. First of all, you wanna walk long enough so that your boot is in level with where the skin track goes up. Then you have both your poles up here, just only for a little bit of balance. You go backward, slide it over, position your ski, and if you're not flexible enough in your hip, you can help with the pole a bit. Position it, one pole up here, the other here. Weight your right knee or your right leg and bend the knee so it goes over. I'm not super patient always with myself, so sometimes I would just kick it instead. Nice.
As the terrain gets steeper, you can often still do a kick turn, but it becomes more difficult and more technical. The same rule applies. We walk forward until our feet are even with the new track. And in the steeper terrain, we want to make sure that we have a solid platform. I put both poles above me just for balance. I can grip the poles lower. And what's very important is in steep terrain to keep your ski below you, turn it and bring it up. If I have wide skis and deep snow, I'll often use the second pole to get this ski exactly where I want it. Now I have a good position. I can move my poles just for balance, transfer the weight, foot behind me, turn the ski, come up, and here we go. A lot of the time it's going to be more efficient to keep your skis on longer, as long as possible, and not boot pack, because boot packing wastes a lot of energy.
While putting in the track, try to avoid kick turns, and when the terrain is not too steep, you can walk around with the skis. I always think about the letters A, V, A and how the skis form these letters. I'm gonna show you here. It's like A, V, A, and then you can continue.
So something important to think about is taking breaks. Generally, it's better to walk at a constant speed, which you can do for some time, and make less breaks. But when you make a break, you want to find a nice place. Think about if you're in a safe spot and a nice place where we can get some food and water.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bonus when you can sit down and rest. And also, I think it's very important that the whole group has the same rests together, so that you don't always have this stop and go. When I take a break, I usually take on a jacket immediately, just in order to not get cold.
And depending on how far you need to go, you can do a short break or a long break, but there should always be time for a drink of water and a bar of chocolate. You agree?
I do very much agree. Yes. Well, we had quite a nice break. One thing we haven't talked about is the heel raiser. And sometimes when the terrain gets steeper, it's nice to put them on so you get a bit higher. But also think about that when you have a heel raiser in, you don't have as much stability as when you're in neutral position.
So we're just about to reach the peak. When it's windy and cold, it can be a good idea to make the last break before you get to the peak and put on some warm clothes already and have your last snack. So when you get to the peak in the wind, you just take your skins off and get ready to ski down. Hey, well done.
Likewise.
Fantastic, huh?
When I come to the summit, I take my skis off and then I immediately take the ski stopper down and I want to take on a warm jacket because I really don't like to freeze.
After I put on my warm jacket, I can start taking my skin off. For my glue, it's better to use the net. So I stick the tip of the ski in the snow. I start at the tail. I begin to pull the skin down and I start to put the net on as I pull the skin off. Then I flip the ski around. Make sure the ski is not getting away and fold the skin back together like that. The windier it is, the harder it is.
So I have a different pair of skins and I don't have to put in a net. So I usually also stick it in the snow, take it until it's half, flip it once, turn around, take it off, and then I bend it here again. Nice little package. As we already talked in the planning phase, it's always nice having different options to ski down, and when you walk up you gather a lot of information about the snowpack and how it feels, much more than you had at home. And I think it's also nice to have a quick check-in with the group on how everyone is feeling, so you can pick the line which is safe according to the conditions.
So we've got a few steep pitches where it rolls over. We'll ski the steep part one at a time, from safe spot to safe spot, to reduce the risk there a bit. And one pro tip, always put your boots in ski mode before you go.
We are back in Andermatt now. Dan had to run for the train. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found some tips and tricks helpful. Of course, this was only scratching at the surface because there would be so much more to talk about, especially concerning safety, avalanche research and so on. So book courses, educate yourself, book a professional guide, and maybe see you in Andermatt next time.